This is the appointed time. We have a quorum. Let me invite the government officials to come in. First item on the agenda, information papers issued since the last meeting. Now, Mr. Ma Fung-kwok issued a letter on the last occasion. And please note that there's another paper as set out on the agenda. Mr. Ma Fung-kwok, do you want to speak? Yes? Chairman, in fact, the administration already responded to my letter. Now, regarding the financial issue of the WKCD, I see this as an imminent issue, but I don't know whether we see eye to eye with the administration. I don't know when we will have a discussion on that. According to the administration, a consultancy report will be compiled. I just want to know when they will be ready. I can't answer on the administration's behalf. Perhaps the administration will inform members once there is progress. Item 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. Please refer to the list of outstanding items for discussion. The next meeting is scheduled for the 11th of December, a Monday at 4:30. The administration has proposed to discuss 2 items. First, the Community Care Fund, and second, is a request from members on museums. Now, in relation to the museums to showcase national achievements, as well as the Museum of Coastal Defense, which will be converted to include the War of Resistance, we can discuss these items as well at the next meeting. Definitely, Chair. For the 2 museums, we can of course discuss them at the next meeting. Only that we only have some very basic idea about those 2. We won't have much to offer other than to listen to members' views, which would be very helpful for our work at this early stage. So, Secretary, if the administration also agrees, next time we will discuss the Community Care Fund as well as the 2 museums. Third item, briefing by the Secretary for Home and Youth Affairs and the Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism on the Chief Executive's 2023 policy address. Members should have received the 2 papers. I see that members have pressed the button as well. The secretaries have led their teams to our meeting. Let me first give the floor to Ms. Alice Mack, Secretary for Home and Youth Affairs. Please keep it short. Chairman, members, the Chief Executive earlier announced the 2023 policy address. We have submitted the paper to the panel on policy measures relating to the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau. I would like to first give some salient points on our work, and I'll take questions and comments from members. Development of youth. Young people are the masters of the future and driver of social development. The Bureau released the Youth Development Blueprint last year to outline the overall vision and guiding principles for the government's long-term youth development work in the future, with a vision to nurturing a new generation with an affection for our country in Hong Kong and equipped with global perspective and positive thinking. We're committed to cross-bureau and interdepartmental collaborations to actively take forward over 160 specific actions and measures to support youth development. This is to demonstrate the government's determination in long-term youth development through sustained efforts. After almost 1 year of implementation, we have achieved some results. The HYAB launched the Youth Festival in July this year under the theme Ignite Youth Power. About 200 activities covering knowledge sharing, arts and culture and sports were held to consolidate and unleash the development potential of youths. We will organize the Youth Development Summit in the middle of next year as the opening and highlight of the 2024 Youth Festival, with over 1,000 participants expected. Guest speakers and youth groups from the mainland and overseas will be invited to come to Hong Kong to take part in the summit. It will serve as a cross-region platform for local youths to exchange views on issues of concern and learn from each other, so as to encourage them to have an accurate understanding of the current situation and future challenges. Another highlight of the blueprint is a new youth network called Youth Link, launched in September this year. After the first round of recruitment, the number of members has reached close to 5,000. I've held the first activity for members of the Youth Link on the 4th of November. I briefed over 40 youths on policy measures relating to our Bureau in the policy address and tapped their views. We will offer them opportunities to develop diverse talents and participate in public affairs through going to seminars, different types of large-scale government activities, exchange visits to the mainland and overseas to strengthen their communication and trust with the government. To enhance youth social cohesion, a gathering point will be provided for constant interaction by participants and for implementing measures in the blueprint. This will help the government and the Youth Development Commission communicate and collaborate with youth participants after joining the programs. To achieve this, the Bureau will look into using suitable facilities as a permanent interactive platform for Youth Link members, such as multifunction areas, a youth culture and creativity bazaar, a small-scale performance spaces with a focus on youth-related projects and activities to give extra activity space for young people. Hong Kong youths are agile and creative. The government has been encouraging young people to engage in innovation and entrepreneurship. On this note, we will set up the Alliance of Hong Kong Youth Innovation and Entrepreneurial Bases in the Greater Bay Area to provide a one-stop information, publicity, and exchange platform for young entrepreneurs in the Greater Bay Area. In addition, we plan to inject $300 million into the Youth Development Fund, which will launch a new round of the funding scheme for youth entrepreneurship in the Greater Bay Area and the funding scheme for experiential programs at innovation and entrepreneurial bases in the Greater Bay Area. With full resumption of travel with the mainland and overseas, the Bureau has resumed external exchange and internship programs in an orderly manner. In 2023-24, 4,800 internship placements and 36,000 exchange opportunities were provided. We'll continue with the above efforts so that young people can gain first-hand understanding of the culture and history, as well as high-speed development of our motherland. Their horizons will be broadened as they know the world better through external changes. We will also continue to listen to the views of stakeholders. We attach great importance to the work of supporting women and their contribution to society. A dedicated women affairs team will be set up under the HYAB, and the post of Commissioner for Women Affairs will be created. In the coming year, a number of key initiatives will be introduced to support women development. First, launching a one-stop family and women information portal, organizing the first Family and Women Development Summit to collect views for formulating more focused measures, launching through CCF a maintenance mediation pilot scheme to assist both parties, including women who are victims of maintenance arrears, to resolve disputes through mediation. We'll continue to encourage women's groups and NGOs to apply for the Women Empowerment Fund under the Women's Commission to help women unleash their potential and build capacity. Starting from next year, the Greater Bay Area Exchange Program will be regularized so as to encourage women to participate in community services so that we can provide a level playing field for women to take part in public affairs. We understand the challenge facing parents in raising children. As announced in this policy address, the Bureau and the Family Council will launch a brand new 5-year funding scheme on the promotion of family education in the latter half of 2024 with an annual funding of $8 million to support non-profit-making community projects to promote family education. The new scheme will also expand its scope to cover education for new parents, parent-child education, family relationship, and other marriage-related subjects with a view to meeting the needs of different families. We will continue to work closely with the Family Council to promote family core values and foster a culture of caring family through holding different activities and publicity through different channels. The government announced in May 2023 the proposal on improving governance at the district level, which include reforming the district councils and strengthening the district governance structure. The District Council's Amendment Ordinance 2023 took effect on the 10th of July upon Gazetto. We have entered a new phase. The Bureau and the Home Affairs Department are rendering full assistance to the Constitution and Mainland Affairs Bureau and the Registration and Electoral Office on the preparatory work for the 7th District Council Ordinary Election on the 10th of December. The new term of DCs after commencement on the 1st of January next year will return to the original positioning under Article 97 of the Basic Law and carry out advisory and services functions and contribute to district governance. On strengthening the structure, the Steering Committee on District Governance and Task Force on District Governance, chaired by Chief Secretary and Deputy respectively, were established in July 2023 to formulate measures to address issues of interest to districts. We will fully support their work to ensure that district work can be carried out effectively, thereby addressing the public's needs. The Home Affairs Department will launch the Klansman Culture Promotion Scheme in the first quarter of 2024 for 3 years, with $30 million reserved for application by local Klansman associations to organize activities to promote culture and facilitate cultural exchange. This will deepen the public's understanding of their hometown and the sense of belonging, thereby cultivating a spirit of loving the motherland, Hong Kong, and the hometown. We've also established the District Youth Community Building Committee across 18 districts in April 2023 to provide a platform for young people. We will invite the committees to propose a distinctive photo-taking landmark for the district to showcase its uniqueness, and the public and the tourists alike will be attracted to take photos and check in at the landmark. The government has been committed to building a caring and inclusive society and provide support for ethnic minorities, or EMs, to facilitate their integration into community. In the 2023 policy address, the following initiatives will be implemented by the Home Affairs Department from 2024, setting up 2 additional support service centers for EMs, one in Kowloon Central and another in New Territories East, so that the number of EM centers will increase from 8 to 10. Ethnic minority care teams will be set up in each of the 10 EM centers. They will actively reach out to EM households, understand their needs, and assist in referring them for necessary public services. The Home Affairs Department will continue to strengthen services for EM youths and new arrivals. We will also regularize the district-based programs for racial harmony. The licensing regime under the Property Management Services Ordinance Cap 626 has been fully implemented under the 1st of August. Currently, all property management companies and property management practitioners must be licensed pursuant to the statutory requirements before they can provide services. As of the end of September this year, over 750 PMCs and over 12,600 PMP licenses have been issued by the authority, benefiting around 28,000 private buildings and over 3.6 million residential users. We work closely with the PMS authority to ensure smooth implementation. The government is committed to promoting good building management. We'll introduce an amendment bill for the Building Management Ordinance Cap 344 within the current legislative session on large-scale maintenance projects, financial statements, criminal sanctions. After passage of the bill, we'll further examine other complex and controversial issues, such as the powers of the authority. We'll continue to provide a range of free building management support services, including inviting district organizations or NGOs to reach out to 3 new buildings to encourage them to form owners' corporations. Under the Building Management Professional Advisory Service Scheme, we'll consider entering into contracts of longer terms with NGOs to ensure continuity of the work. Next, on care teams, the 2022 policy address proposed the establishment of care teams. Since then, we have commissioned care teams in Tsuen Wan and Southern District since May. The remaining care teams in 16 districts have been set up in the 3rd quarter. 452 teams in 18 districts are ready to serve the public. We will mobilize the community to provide services to the public. They will assist in handling incidents, emergencies, and to help enhance the district network. To enhance the efficiency of care works, the department will explore deploying information technology to facilitate their work. Chairman, members, the views on our policies and the work plan are welcome. Thank you. I will now invite Secretary Yang to deliver opening remarks, and then the floor will be open for members. The major initiatives in the 2023 policy address relating to the culture, creative industries, and sport are set out in the paper. On the cultural front, the country expressly supports the development of Hong Kong into an East-West Center for international cultural exchange. With this objective in mind, the government will continue to promote the development of cultural and creative industries. We'll promulgate the blueprint for arts and culture and creative industry development within this year. The Culture Commission, established in March this year, commenced discussion on the relevant issues. Initially, the blueprint will cover 4 major directions: developing diversified and international arts and culture, promoting Chinese culture, promoting arts and cultural exchanges between Hong Kong and the mainland and the world, as well as fostering the development of industries. They cover the 3 major areas relating to the culture and creative industries in the policy address. Through setting objectives and directions in the blueprint, we hope to enhance the policies and the ecosystem of the industries. I also look forward to seeking members' views on the blueprint today. Hong Kong is an important bridge for our country's exchange with the world. We should strive to promote the breadth and depth of Chinese culture, to showcase our soft power and the unique charm of Chinese culture. We'll also support patriotic education. The LCSD will set up a Chinese Culture Promotion Office to plan and implement a series of activities, exchanges, and collaborations on Chinese culture and history, including the inaugural Chinese Culture Festival to be held next year, so that the public can fully appreciate the essence of Chinese culture and the cultural roots we share with the mainland. We'll set up a museum to showcase the development and achievements of our country, covering areas such as history, politics, economic development, and culture. Before the commissioning of the new dedicated museum, the LCSD will set up exhibition galleries in existing museums to display the relevant content. The existing Hong Kong Museum of Coastal Defense will be converted into the Hong Kong Museum of the War of Resistance and Coastal Defense. It will focus on the history of war of resistance with enhanced programs to cultivate a stronger sense of national esteem and patriotism. We will also consolidate existing and planned museums to better meet the needs of social development and changes and to increase their appeal to tourists. Create Hong Kong will be restructured as the Cultural and Creative Industries Development Agency, which will proactively promote the development of arts, culture, and creative sectors as industries under the industry-oriented approach. This will drive economic growth and enhance our soft power. We already briefed the panel on information technology and broadcasting on the initiatives relating to creative industries. We will launch the Signature Performing Arts Program Scheme. Through direct matching subsidies and venue support, we hope to nurture world-class performing arts productions and international cultural brands that are representing Hong Kong for long-term public performances so that they become international cultural brands for others to come and appreciate in Hong Kong as a global stage. The existing annual provisions for cultural exchange will be increased by 40% from $50 million to $70 million, so as to support more local art groups and artists to perform, to participate in exhibitions and other activities outside Hong Kong, so that they can tap overseas opportunities. Funding support will be given to the economic and trade officers in the mainland and overseas to increase manpower and strengthen their promotion work on arts and culture. We will also launch the pilot scheme on the use of school venues by arts groups in collaboration with the Education Bureau. We will further open up school venues for rehearsals by arts groups during after school hours on a pilot basis, so as to provide venues and space for the arts and culture sector in support of the development of the industries. On sports, we will promote sports in Hong Kong through supporting elite sports, enhancing professionalism, maintaining Hong Kong as a center for major international sports events, developing sports as an industry, and promoting sports in the community. Promoting sports will not only bring benefits to public health, but will also make us unite with a sense of pride when our athletes win in international competitions. A vibrant sports industry also drives economic growth. We will continue to devote resources to support elite sport, including building a swimming pool capable of hosting international competitions, as well as a sports center with fencing training competition facilities. Kai Tak Sports Park, upon its commissioning, will be a premier venue for major events such as international football and rugby matches, as well as concerts. It will support comprehensive development of sports and allow more international sports events to be held, thereby driving industry's development and building an icon for tourists. The quality of coaching affects athletic training. We'll collaborate with the SF and OC to offer more professional training to coaches, including internship opportunities to enhance equality. The new building of the Hong Kong Sports Institute will provide more advanced training facilities for elite athletes. There will be enhancements to the Sports Medicine Center to deliver more support on sports medicine. The LCSD will promote sports for all. We will collaborate with the SF and OC to organize a festival of sports events on the Sports for All Day. We will consider opening sports facilities for free admission on special annual festival occasions. We will also encourage the public to take part in thematic sports day. The LCSD will set up self-test fitness corners at its sports centers, and smart equipment will be introduced in outdoor venues to encourage people to exercise more. We also organize more family-oriented and parent-child activities to encourage families to work out together regularly. To support the Shining City project, the LCSD will plant flowering trees and colorful shrubs at suitable places, roadsides, and planters of roundabouts extensively to create a green living space. art and design elements will be injected in suitable pitches, courts, as well as external walls of sports venues and washrooms to make the venues more appealing. Looking ahead, we will continue to promote the development of arts, culture, creative industries, and sports in Hong Kong to implement the objective of developing Hong Kong into an East meets West Center for international cultural exchange in the 14th Five-Year Plan, as well as enhancing professionalism and developing sports and the industry in Hong Kong.
Thank you, secretaries. I believe members have a lot of questions for you. Members, you have pressed the button to speak. There are 13 of them. There are Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Adrian Ho, Mr. Kenneth Lau, Mr. Kenneth Fok, Ms. Chen Yut Ming, Mr. Benson, Mr. Michael Luke, Dr. Johnny, Mr. Rock Chen, Mr. Brave Chen, Mr. Ma Fung-kwok, Dr. So Chun Wing, Mr. Kenneth Leung, Mr. Perry Yu, and myself. 4 minutes for each member. Mr. Andrew Lam, please. I have a question about the cultural development of Hong Kong. I understand that with national security issues, there are still undercurrents in Hong Kong. There are talks about people making use of arts and culture as soft resistance. We are promoting Hong Kong to be a East meets West cultural center. I've talked to people in the arts and cultural sector, and they have concerns. It's been hard for them to give full play to their industries and retain talents. In relation to these concerns from the industries, is the government having a grasp of the situation? If it does, how are you going to alleviate the concerns of the industries to help with the promotion of the industries? Secretary. National security is a responsibility of every one of us, as we are all Chinese nationals. The issue of national security won't affect arts and cultural activities. These concerns are unnecessary. For the activities that we held and sponsored, and for activities in which the government provided venues, we have all along made the requirements clear, which is the organizers had to meet the requirements in relation to national security. Well, with this requirement, there is still a lot of room for people to develop their works. We see a vibrant development in our arts and cultural sector over the past few years. There are people who are concerned whether they will meet the requirement. I believe as long as people have the affection for our country, as long as people know that they should not do anything to endanger national security, I believe there is still a lot of room for people to develop the industry. For instance, we have a funding scheme to sponsor those who are producing the first feature film. We have received a big number of applications, and the number is the highest over the years. There are people who are trying to create fear. However, if we all strive to work towards ensuring national security, I believe there is room for people to develop the arts and cultural sectors. Mr. Adrian Ho, I have a question for Mr. Kevin Yeung. The government proposed to inject a total of $4.3 billion to the CSI as well as the FDF, that is the Film Development Fund, as well as the Create Hong Kong scheme, so as to allow Hong Kong films to be released in the mainland. For the Hong Kong films that are relatively more successful, they have been successful in the local market but not in the mainland or overseas market. Well, the policy address proposed to inject $4.3 billion to these two funds and schemes, meaning that we hadn't been very successful in this regard. So my question is, in terms of the Film Development Fund, will the government ask the relevant production teams to provide sales plan or indicators when they submit applications to make sure that they make good use of the funds and that they will be able to tap into the overseas market? Secretary, creative sectors cover the film industry. We have had a similar discussion in the other panel. Under the Film Development Fund, there are different schemes. For instance, the one that I mentioned about sponsoring first feature films. We also subsidize filmmakers for producing films. Under the policy address, we have proposed two schemes for targeting overseas market or the mainland market. One of the schemes target productions that aim to be released in the mainland market. And filmmakers under the scheme can work with enterprises in the mainland. And one of the requirements under the scheme is that the filmmakers have to make sure that the films will be released in the mainland. That is, the filmmakers will have to take into consideration the mainland market. The other scheme targets co-production between filmmakers from Hong Kong and European or Asian countries. So these co-produced films should suit the market of European and Asian countries. And the co-produced films should be able to enter the European and Asian markets as well. So our target is to help filmmakers open up other markets. These are our development directions. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lau. Thank you, Chairman. I have a question for Ms. Alice Mack. Previously, in the administration's briefing, it was mentioned that the government would strengthen the work of district care teams to support singleton elderlies or families with elderly people as well as people with mental needs. I think this is a great direction. I hope the government will, through the care teams, provide support to people in need to avoid tragedies from happening. Will the government provide training to members of the care teams? In order to support people with mental needs, oftentimes we need the help from clinical psychologists. So I wonder if the government has any plans to provide such training. Another question for Mr. Yeung. It is mentioned that the government has plans to work with the Shenzhen authorities to open up Shuttlecock for tourism. Shuttlecock, that is the closed area, is the area closest to the mainland. Last year, the Security Bureau was responsible for taking care of the issues at the border. Now CSTB is taking over the work. I wonder if the government has plans to set up a cross-departmental or interdepartmental task force for this project. Any thoughts on this? Thank you.
Two questions, Ms. Mack. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Lau, for the questions. About enhancing the work of care teams, since its establishment, we have heard the feedback from the community on the work of the care teams. There is an aspiration for care teams to take up a bigger role. This is an acknowledgement of their contribution to community service. But at the same time, there are areas in which the care teams cannot replace professionals, such as identifying those with mental health needs, communicating and reaching out to hidden elderly, so to speak. The work of care teams entail paying home visits so as to better tap the pulse of the needs of the community. At the same time, with the support of professionals in government departments, referrals can be made to help members of the public in need. So the member asked whether training will be provided to care team members. The answer is in the affirmative. We have been providing care teams with training. For example, in the Central and Western District last week, we offered training on property management and knowledge in this area in general, because there are more 3 new buildings in that district. But training can never replace professional services such as those offered by clinical psychologists and community psychiatric nurses. That is why we need to collaborate with the professionals so that members of the public can get the services and the support they need. Those in need can have access to information with the help of care teams on where they should turn to get help. Mr. Yang, Shuttlecock is a frontier closed area. As such, we need to consider the security perspective, and that any opening up proposal will be implemented in a gradual manner. Now, it is very likely that Shuttlecock will be further opened up in the future. So it's an opportune time for us to consider what should be done to help promote the development of Shuttlecock. In terms of planning and development parameters and restrictions, we need to collaborate with other government departments to assess, for example, the expected footfall and traffic flow capacity. We have begun this discussion. On an initial basis, Shuttlecock will be a tourist attraction, especially ecotourism. Well, since it adjoins Shenzhen, we need to put our heads together and discuss co-development as well. So as Shuttlejiao in Shenzhen is still under development. Mr. Kenneth Fok, I want to make one comment and I want to ask one question. I understand that the Chinese Culture Promotion Office will be set up. The Chinese Culture Festival will be held. Chinese culture encompasses a vast scope. The feedback from the sector is that they are not very clear what exactly Chinese culture means. It seems to cover a very wide scope. So for the Chinese Culture Festival to be held every year, will the government help us take a more focused approach in our promotion effort. For example, there may be tea culture, calligraphy, dancing, so on and so forth. That's a strategy adopted by our nation. So I'd like the administration to enlighten us as well. On the matter of resources, it is understood that the stakeholders can reach out to the private sector for sponsors, but the government should provide better coordination and support in this regard. The other point is Creative Industries Development Agency, which will be established on the basis of Create Hong Kong. And I understand that the Create Hong Kong will be expanded, in other words, with participation by more members from the creative industries. Is it something like COCA in South Korea to promote the creative industries there? Because COCA is responsible for planning, developing, tapping overseas markets, nurturing talents under arts, culture, tourism portfolios. Is it something for us in the long term? Because it seems that Create Hong Kong is working in silos. Resources are distributed to different partners to fund their own projects, whereas COCA takes a more proactive approach. So I'd like to know whether there are long-term goals of this Creative Industries Development Agency, or is it that there will be different streams of funding for different stakeholders or different organizations to take forward the initiatives? Like Mr. Kenneth Fox said, Chinese culture is deep and broad. Well, there are different ways as to how the Chinese Culture Festival should be held. We can adopt certain themes in a year. We can incorporate local characteristics. We can also collaborate with different partners in the country and different organizations. At this stage, we are planning for the upcoming Chinese Culture Festival. We will map out the major directions. Now, after the first year, we will conduct a review and consider further improvements. The objective is to allow members of the public to have greater understanding of Chinese culture and to enhance the appeal for locals and tourists alike to come and appreciate Chinese culture in Hong Kong. As for the Creative Industries Development Agency, I don't think we can make this apple-to-apple comparison with COCA. In terms of funding input and the development directions, we are different. We take an industry-oriented approach. We want to offer more in-depth support. In other words, we identify the areas of creative industries with development potential, and then we provide support to realize this goal. The agency will also help the industries tap different markets. There will be business meetings. The agency will also conduct research. And basically, these are the directions usually adopted by the agencies in other countries as well. Depending on the resources available, we'll strive to provide the best assistance we can to the industries. Ms. Chen Yuming, I have two questions. Sorry, let me take the earpiece off first. The first question is about the Greater Bay Area Exchange Program. National Games will be held. This will be a major event for our country. In due course, the 10-year development blueprint for arts and cultural facilities will be rolled out. In the Huizhou football team and the local team had a match just this weekend in Hong Kong. There will be more frequent cultural exchanges from now on. Now, the paper seems to be silent on these matters. I'd like to have a supplementary from the administration after the meeting, especially on collaboration with the Greater Bay Area on the front of sports. The other point is this. Recently, there have been some sports games and competitions held in collaboration with the Greater Bay Area cities, such as a junior boxing match in Luohu. A lot of support was given to host this game, including venue support. 70,000 renminbi was also provided per participant. Now, I wrote to the secretary, and at the anti-chamber exchange session, I mentioned the same to the secretary. I didn't receive any written reply. The game was successfully held in Luohu, Shenzhen. Many junior boxers in Hong Kong took part in the match in Shenzhen. We can see that there is a great gap here. The administration should see to this issue. In terms of manpower, funding supports, the hosting of games, the government should provide more support. The other point is about the Museum on War of Resistance and promoting tourism. The Museum of Coastal Defense will be converted into the Museum of War of Aggression and War of Resistance and the Coastal Defense. Well, I understand this museum is quite far away from Shau Kei Wan Station. A lot of relics relating to the War of Resistance are actually located in the new territories. Why has the government decided to convert the Museum of Coastal Defense to take this forward? What is the estimated number of young attendees or students after the museum's conversion? Secretary. One of our highlights is GBA collaboration. There are 9 cities in the Greater Bay Area, and there are different regions and precincts in Greater Bay Area city. Now, Hong Kong is just one of the cities. It is impossible to send delegations to take part in every game. But let me apologize for not replying to your inquiry. For every written inquiry, there should be a response from the administration. So I will go back and find out why your letter didn't receive a response. Because of manpower constraints, we are unable to participate in every competition in the Greater Bay Area. Just in the past few weeks, we had the Asian Games, Para-Asian Games, as well as the National Games. Our athletes took part in these games, but it is impossible to cover each and every game in our country. Now, our goal, after all, is to foster greater exchange and collaboration with the mainland on the arts and cultural front, including the Greater Bay Area cities. So we will do our best in arranging for the necessary manpower and the support for these games. As for the Museum of Coastal Defense, this is an important location. And this is the reason why we built this museum at that location. In fact, the museum has undergone a recent expansion. We have incorporated elements of the War of Resistance, as the museum is already showcasing the history of the War of Resistance to educate students. We've decided to convert the museum altogether. It is not the case that we deliberately choose this location. It is because this location carries some historic value. As set out in the policy address, every year we will hold exhibitions, activities relating to the War of Resistance, so that members of the public in Hong Kong, especially young people, will have a better understanding of the War of Resistance. In the past year, I visited the museum 3 to 4 times, and on every occasion, I found students of different ages there. So definitely, students will have a chance to visit the museum. I fully agree with what you said in general, only that we need to consider the resource and manpower implications.
You.
Mr. Michael Luke. Thank you, Chairman. I want to ask about the fund for major sports events. Recently, there is the FIA World Racing game in Hong Kong, and the game was held near the electrical complex. You may be aware from media reports that there were delays in holding games, and the tracks was narrowed from 1,300 meters to 800 meters, and it is the shortest track among all the games. And it was said that preparation time was not enough, and it was part of the events under the MMARC system or MMARC scheme, and $17 million were allocated to holding the game. But we saw failures in terms of the preparation of the game. Did the government play a supervisory role in the game? Is the government considering deducting the fund given to the organizer? Normally, in projects like these, if we see failures, someone should be held accountable, because this has to do with the image of Hong Kong. And this was close to the holding of the 70th Grand Prix in Macau. How come there were no coordination efforts seen? Because there were similar international games held in the region. Is there a supervision mechanism under the MMARC scheme? Some of the view that the government is devoting a lot of resources to sponsoring these large-scale events. This is a commercial event that we are talking about. How come it managed to get so much funding from the government? We have Sports for All Day in Hong Kong, and there were views that the government should give out free tickets to members of the public so that they could watch soccer games for free. However, the government rejected the idea. How come the government is at the same time sponsoring so much money to these kind of commercial large-scale events? Secretary. Member may have some misunderstanding in relation to the vision of our MMARC scheme. For MMARC schemes, we are aiming at supporting large-scale international events. You mentioned about supporting local soccer games. Every year, we devote resources to local soccer teams. We have specific funding earmarked for local sports or local soccer teams. Based on different policy objectives, we roll out different projects and schemes. You have to understand that we're talking about international racing events or international sports games which have Hong Kong as its final stops. Secretary, I understand this is under the MMARC scheme. Are you going to pursue accountability of the organizer? We approved funding to the organizer. previously we had this wine and dine festival, and we also have the Symphony Under the Stars event in this coming Saturday. And the Orchestra of Hong Kong is going to, and the Hong Kong Philharmonic is going to perform in the event. So time was tight because there were events and activities before and after that. However, after discussions, we believe that we would be able to manage it, so that's why we allocate that time slot for the organizer. And the situation is different from that in Macau, where the 70th Grand Prix was held. It's the first time we used major roads in Hong Kong to hold the race. So there were unexpected situations. We went to do a site visit these 2 days. Be it the atmosphere at the site or feedback from the international communities or media reports, we're getting positive feedback. The track may deviate from the original design, but it meets the international standard of such race. So after discussions with the organizers, they managed to hold a race that meets international standard. We didn't ask the organizer to start or finish the game at a certain time, and roads were closed off for the race. We didn't set stringent requirements or impose rules on them. So overall speaking, we understand that members of the public who got tickets may be disappointed because the race was postponed or delayed. We will talk to the organizers in the future if we are to hold similar races again. However, in this particular instance, we think that we managed to do our job well. Dr. Johnny I have a couple of questions. Well, Mr. Michael Luke mentioned about the car race. Well, this weekend, because of the major sports events held in Hong Kong, we managed to attract a lot of tourists to the city. This past Saturday, I saw lots of tourists in Causeway Bay, and restaurants were full. I have a couple of questions about the Film Development Fund. I'm glad to see that the government is reserving some $4 billion, and of which $1 billion will be allocated to films. Millions of dollars were allocated to local filmmakers. However, it's hard for local filmmakers to go global. I wonder if the government is going to roll out matching fund so that larger productions can be created and that more frontline filmmakers can take part in these medium scale or large scale productions. Members mentioned about the South Korea just now. A lot of these films are played on online streaming platforms. I wonder if funding will be allocated to allow these films to be launched on streaming platforms. Secretary, we sponsored some of the productions to be launched in online streaming platforms. We have received applications and we are considering these applications now. I'll ask the Permanent Secretary to talk about a scheme for mainland market. I thank Dr. for the question. You mentioned a key point just now. Previously, the Film Development Fund mainly sponsored small-scale productions, and we want local films to go global. We have to allocate more fund. Say for first feature films, we have certain funds for them. And we saw a record high applications for this scheme. As for the film financing scheme for mainland market, we are targeting medium-scale productions, and that is those with at least $25 million. For large-scale productions, I believe they don't need our sponsorship. But for medium scale, they have to have at least $25 million of capital. And under this scheme, we want to ensure that filmmakers from different areas are able to take part in the scheme. Also, we are going to launch the scheme with investors in the mainland. This is to ensure that after the films are produced, these films can be released in the mainland. This is to help open up the mainland market. We want the mainland people to know the filmmakers in Hong Kong. Mr. Brave Chen, I declare that I'm an honorary president of the Zhejiang Klansmen Association. I'm glad that the government is allocating $30 million to Klansmen associations in Hong Kong for 3 years. There are views that it is hard to make applications to the government and the procedures is complicated and lengthy. Now that the government is proposing $30 million for local Klansmen associations, I wonder if the government is going to hold briefing sessions, especially for the secretarial staff of various Klansmen associations, so they know better the standards for applications. Also, will the government assign staff to answer inquiries from Klansmen associations, as they may have questions when they fill out application forms, to ensure a smooth application process for these associations? Also, there are 26 Klansmen associations at the provincial level. $30 million for 3 years may not be enough. I want to ask if the administration will allow associations to co-organize activities. Also, will there be room for the government to roll out matching fund? In terms of the standards of allocating fund, I wonder if the government will hold 1 to 2 briefing sessions for Klansmen associations. If the government is willing to do so, I'm happy to offer help. Also, Mr. Kevin Yeung mentioned that when the Kai Tak Sports Park is ready, it can be a venue for holding concerts. As we all know, Taylor Swift didn't pick Hong Kong for holding concerts. She picked Singapore instead. It is not just a concert that we're talking about, because Taylor Swift is very influential, and it can bring about a lot of economic benefits if she picks Hong Kong to hold her concert. I wonder if venues can be used for holding large-scale concerts. What I understand is that Taylor Swift didn't pick Hong Kong because there aren't enough time slots for her to hold concerts here, and we don't have enough venue support. Now that we are going to have a venue which can hold about 50,000 people. I wonder there will be more opportunities for us to hold large-scale concerts. Thank you.
I thank Mr. Rock Chan and the Klansmen Associations for providing community services and holding activities. Even without government funding support, many of these organizations have been using their own resources, and the community leaders are devoted to promote hometown and Klansmen culture using their own resources. We'd like to provide resources to help these Klansmen associations hold more activities and further promote the hometown culture in Hong Kong. Apart from setting aside resources, we'd like to take this opportunity to make sure that they can provide community services and promote the Klansman culture on a regular basis. As for the other questions, such as a seminar for the associations, this is something we have in mind. Having collected the initial feedback, we will talk to the relevant associations. Seminars will be held. I thank Mr. Rock Chan for his coordination. Now for our district officers, they are here to help, including filling out forms, not only for this initiative, but for others as well. We always help applicants fill out forms. As for joint programs, we want to keep things flexible as well. More importantly, we want to make sure that resources are available so that we can consolidate the different associations to hold activities. Mr. Young, Kai-Tak Sports Park is designed to host sports events. In our agreement with the service operator, we put in some requirements. For example, there are conditions on slots for sports events, but arrangements can also be made for the venue to be used for other purposes such as concerts. The key is to start your discussion well in advance. If the sessions have been booked, then it will be more difficult to vacate this slot for your booking. Still, for the Hong Kong Coliseum, at least we have a similar arrangement. Mr. Chan Yong. Thank you. Chairman, I have a question for the Secretary about the Youth Link. We are all concerned about our young people, but when it comes to youth development, a lot of input is required and the investment period is quite long. Now, say for the KPIs, can you tell in 1 year what targets should be met? Because the measures sound appealing, but you need to ramp up your effort. For care teams, especially with the participation of young people at the district level, do you have a timetable? Will venues be made available for hire at concessionary rents? Another question is this. Now, on repeated requests, you have finally decided to set up 2 museums, one of which is the Museum of Coastal Defense, which will be converted into the Museum of the War of Resistance and Coastal Defense. When it comes to coastal defense, the origin of this term comes from the colonial times. The British Army had to fend off other naval armies from the Netherlands and other places. I don't think this is most suited for Hong Kong's current situation. Now, I understand a dedicated museum will be set up on the Museum of the War of Resistance. Do you have a timetable? Can you report your progress to us so that we have an idea when this will come on stream? Ms. Mack, about the youth link, as mentioned by Mr. Chan Yong, our goal is, of course, a long-term one. Like Mr. Chen said, we must not be myopic when it comes to fulfilling youth development objectives. This term of government is persistent in meeting the long-term objectives of youth development. Before the pandemic, every year, 70,000 people benefited from various youth programs under our subsidy schemes. However, the efforts were not sustained. That is why we want to enhance cohesion. Through this youth link, we can provide subsidies and recruit more young participants. Through exchanges and other internship opportunities, these young people have taken part in various activities during summer. And afterwards, they have, on their own initiative, joined the Youth Link. We have 500 members, and we plan to run at least 10 activities in a year. In fact, we just recently held a briefing session for our young people on the policy address so that we can also hear from them their views on the policy address. This will be a long-term task for us. About the locations or offices for care teams in various public housing estates, this is an ongoing task. The Housing Authority is now collating information on vacant premises. Mr. Yang, on the Museum of Coastal Defense, it is so named because of where it is situated. It used to be a battery. Like Mr. Chen said, this military facility was used to fend off the Dutch. So this museum is built at that location simply of the historical background and the significance. Now we will continue to listen to feedback from members, and we can give it a thought again. But the point is, this museum is built there simply because of the historical significance of the location. As for the other question, we now have this concept on a preliminary basis, and we have also received comments from members that we should set aside a premium location to showcase our country's development and achievements so as to enhance the public's understanding as well as letting our visitors know the development of Hong Kong as well as our country so that we can tell good stories of one country, two systems, and fulfill our positioning as the East-West Center for International Cultural Exchange. Now, it's still on the drawing board. We will be happy to take views from members. So feel free to give us input on what to be included in the museum. Mr. Ma Fung-kwok. I wanted to ask a question on the FIA World Rally Cross Championship. I'd like to ask a number of questions for clarification. This event was held for the first time in Hong Kong. I was also present at the venue. A number of government officials were also present. I believe they made a lot of efforts in making this happen. This is a major event, and it is the first time Hong Kong is organizing this leg of the championship. Preemptive measures should be put in place to handle incidents. Now, this is supposed to be an landmark event. My question is about the two museums in the policy address. These are two important museums. And I pondered how we can do our level best. I recently visited the Hong Kong Museum of History, and if we don't have the correct narrative about our local history, things can go very wrong. Now, I visited the Hong Kong Museum of History because my friend, after visiting the museum, found some problems with the exhibition content. No, I went there and saw for myself, and I agree that indeed there were a lot of problems with this exhibition. I wrote an article, in fact, telling about the problems. Now let me turn to the Museum of Coastal Defense. But in fact, Tuen Mun is the place that we should promote when it comes to coastal defense. Even before the British Army landed on our territory, we already sent back the place to fend off our enemies in Tuen Mun. Our history began not from the time when we were under the British colonial rule. We had a much longer history than that. That is why we need to make sure that our history is interpreted in a correct way. In fact, on the mainland, you will find ample research on the history of Hong Kong. So for the history of coastal defense, perhaps you can further consider whether you should put coastal defense and war of resistance together in the same museum. Because even as long as 7 or 8 years ago, complaints were received about the Coastal Defense Museum. In fact, the FTU held a press conference last week. 7 museums in Hong Kong did not display the exhibition content correctly So I think we should make sure that our historical narrative is correct. I'm not going to ask for a response. I just want to make this comment. Let me just respond by saying that I fully appreciate the importance to have the correct historical outlook. So for the Hong Kong Museum of History, we have revamped the content. In the past year, we took down the old exhibition content and replaced them with the new ones. Mr. Ma Fung-kwok referred to another point. Perhaps since it's a time-limited exhibition, there wasn't enough time to make sure the content is entirely appropriate. But anyway, this exhibition had drawn to a close. As for the Museum of Coastal Defense, when it was reopened a year ago, we already gave the content an overhaul. I will invite members to go there and see for themselves. And about the comment on Tuen Mun and the history of Hong Kong, I think you will find the relevant information in the Hong Kong Museum of Coastal Defense. We built the museum at that location because it used to be a battery. In any way, we welcome views and suggestions from members, it is always our responsibility to make sure that there will not be any misunderstanding of the content. We haven't received this submission from the FTU on museums, but we'll be happy to hear from them. We welcome views and comments from the community. Oh, we did receive it last week. All right, so we will go through them one by one. Our museums are overseen by experts, but like Mr. Ma said about the accuracy of information, we'll go back and give it a thought.
Dr. So Chun Wing. Thank you, Chairman. I have questions for the CSTV. West Kowloon Cultural District and the Kai Tak Sports Park that it's currently being built are the two most expensive sports projects or cultural projects in Hong Kong. We'll be proud when we see the completion of these two projects. We should see operation of commercial and leisure facilities in these districts to bring out the maximum benefit of these two projects. For the West Kowloon Cultural District project, it's not close to the MTR station. That is the district itself. I understand that there are signages at Elements and Chim Sa Choi that direct people to the West Kowloon Cultural District. However, it takes people a 20-minute walk to get there, since it's not close to the MTR station. Also, there are no public buses that bring people there. I understand that there is a circular bus route running in the district. There are also just 40 parking spaces, some of which are dedicated for the staff there. In other words, we're lacking public transport facilities there. People who go there to spend money or to take part in activities will think about how to get there. I wonder if the transport facilities have taken into account of the needs of people from different walks of life. There is a lack of public transportation to bring people home from the West Kowloon Cultural District. I once dined there and it took me a long time to wait for taxis. So I wonder if there is any plan to enhance the transport facilities there. Also, for the Northern Metropolis project, I don't see any mentioning about arts and cultural development in Northern Metropolis. Secretary, we have planned some arts and cultural facilities for the Northern Metropolis. The parts may fall under the chapter about the Northern Metropolis. It is mainly the Development Bureau that's responsible for the Northern Metropolis project. And in the press conferences held by the government earlier, there was mentioning about arts and recreational facilities planned for the Northern Metropolis. We will update members of the details in due course. The West Kowloon Cultural District Authority is responsible for the management of facilities in the district. The authority understands the challenges that they have been facing in terms of transport facilities. On this issue, we've been working with the authority to come up with solutions, and we've been also talking to the transport department about this. We are looking for ways to improve the facilities there. It's hard for us to add railway services there at the moment. However, we do notice transport issues in terms of parking spaces and traffic congestion, etc. And we've been dealing with these issues with the WKCDA. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I have a few questions and comments. The first is about projects relation to youth entrepreneurship. I'm glad that the government is injecting $300 million to the Youth Development Fund and that there will be a new round of funding scheme for youth entrepreneurship. This past weekend, I had a chance to talk to young people who benefited from the previous round of funding scheme. They have some comments and feedback. The previous round was rolled out during the COVID pandemic, so the participants didn't really have time to start their businesses in the Greater Bay Area. So I wonder if the government can extend the support for these startup teams and NGOs. Also, the policy address announced that within the year, there will be the Alliance of Hong Kong Youth Innovation and Entrepreneurial Bases in the Greater Bay Area. A lot of startup teams are quite familiar with the entrepreneurial bases in the Greater Bay Area, for instance, how much funding is allocated to the bases, etc. I hope the alliance can serve more functions than the ones mentioned in the policy address. Can the alliance help startup teams to start their businesses or help them promote their businesses or provide discounts and concessions to the startup teams so that people joining the funding scheme can better develop their businesses in the mainland? My second question concerns the preparation for the national games. Mr. Kenneth Fung and I are concerned about the progress of preparation for the national games. We have just seen the Hangzhou Asian Games, and the secretary also went to the Asian Games to see the support given by the volunteers. I wonder if more information in this regard can be shared with us. Secretary. We've heard the comments and experiences from different young people who benefited from our funding scheme. I now invite my colleague to talk about our work in this regard. I thank member for the question. Mr. Leung mentioned that because of COVID, some of the startup teams were affected in terms of their business plans in the Greater Bay Area. They weren't able to achieve what they had planned because of COVID. We are aware of this issue, and we managed to listen to the views of applicants. And with the demands of the applicants, we managed to extend the support for these applicants or participants. For the 200 startup teams who had finished the scheme, we hope that their experiences can help the teams currently participating in the scheme. For the Alliance of Hong Kong Youth Innovation and Entrepreneurial Bases, we hope to roll out through the Alliance different promotional activities for the future startup teams. Our target is to set up the Alliance within this year. After we've established the Alliance, we'll continue to collect views from people to see how we can improve our work in this regard. I'll ask the Permanent Secretary to tell us more about the preparation work for the National Games. In terms of the preparation work, I'm afraid we aren't able to disclose more details because we have to talk to the mainland authorities to finalize on some of the details, and we have to dovetail with the Macau authorities in terms of the preparation work because a lot of details are involved here. You mentioned about volunteers. Well, over the past week, there is a delegation from the government involving representatives from 14 government departments, and they went to Nanning in Guangxi to learn about how university prepares for holding games. And there were volunteers taking part in the preparation, and we exchanged views with them in relation to having volunteers taking part in the preparation work. We understand that we have to recruit quite a number of volunteers from different sources. If we have further details, we will share them with members. Thank you. Next, Mr. Perry Yu. Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions. The first one is for Ms. Alice Mack. According to government's paper, there's a part about community building, and the government is trying to encourage young people to take part in community building. In 18 districts in Hong Kong, there is a committee for young people to take part in community building that is called the District Youth Community Building Committee, and the government is going to invite young people to give comments on where people can take photos at landmark locations. Back in 2003, there was a scheme or project rolled out by the Home Affairs Department involving young people, which allowed them to learn more about the 18 districts in Hong Kong. And young people taking part in the scheme or project were able to learn more about the characteristics of different districts in Hong Kong, as well as tourism development in Hong Kong. I want to ask Ms. Alice Mack whether you will invite members of the tourism industry to take part in the scheme. On one hand, we may be able to attract young people to join the tourism industry, and they can learn more about the tourism industry. Also, perhaps those and tours can be provided to young people. My second question is for Mr. Kevin Yeung about the Museum of Coastal Defense. I remembered the Museum of Coastal Defense reopened last November after renovation. It is a place worth our visit because the architecture itself is unique. It is mentioned in the government's paper that the SAR government will work with the Shenzhen Municipal Cultural Relics Bureau to organize exhibitions. I myself went to Nansha to visit the coastal defense facilities, as the authorities there are building museum and facilities of coastal defense. I wonder if your collaboration with the Shenzhen authorities is mainly to showcase history of war of resistance. Well, there are historical relics or batteries from Qing Dynasty back in 1729. I wonder if we can showcase relevant historical relics by working with Nansha or other mainland cities to showcase these historical relics. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yu, for the suggestions. For the District Youth Community Building Community, they will be invited to give suggestions on photo taking spots, which is the latest trend for tourists to get immersive experience in the community. Young people are familiar with their neighborhood, so they must be familiar with the most photoscenic spots to attract tourists. We think that this is one way of engaging our youths in community building. About collaborating with the tourism industry, as Mr. Yu suggests, I think that this is a very good suggestion. Now, young people can identify the check-in spots in their own neighborhoods, but we need to take follow-up action. We want to promote the achievements of our young people, and that means afterwards we should collaborate with the tourism industry. One way to go by is to develop a route for tourists covering all the check-in spots in the 18 districts. That way we can collaborate with our young people and further promote their achievements, thereby showcasing their creativity. Mr. Young. Yes, I agree that for the collaboration with the Shenzhen counterpart, the theme of the War of Resistance will be adopted. We have a rich history of the War of Resistance. We see an opportunity in collaborating with the Shenzhen counterpart to enrich our content. At the same time, it is true that our focus is on the War of Resistance. We want to hold annual events with the same focus to help young people better understand the history of the War of Resistance as part of patriotic education in Hong Kong. Now, on coastal defense, yes, we can consider including the elements as well. I don't think these two are mutually exclusive. It's all about manpower and resources. Next, Ms. Nixie Lam. I have a number of questions about the Youth Link. On a regular basis, push notifications will be sent to the members on the promotion of activities, but the enrollment period is usually very short, like 1 week. Will you consider pushing SMS messages instead of emails so that young people will definitely receive the messages? I'm not sure whether young people are still using emails nowadays. They may not check emails on a regular basis. So this is a point of improvement. On women development, the Commissioner for Women Affairs will be established. This is commendable. But as I said before, for young people, the definition is young people below the age of 35. For women, now women may not think that this is under the purview of women affairs. For younger women, very often there is a lack of support for their development. These young women may not start to even think about these things until they get married. So for health checkups, etc., the Health Bureau and other bureaus should send reminders to younger women at the way in advance, because this will help promote fertility as well. I see a gap here. I want to know whether this gap can be addressed. As one transitions from a young person to adulthood, is there anything that can be done? Secretary, yes, about Youth Link and how we enhance communication with members. This will be our ongoing task. We are considering developing an app, and by then we will communicate not only with members of the Youth Link but all young people. Now, the member asked whether young people nowadays check emails. We adopt other means such as WhatsApp groups and other communication channels, social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. So we make sustained efforts to enhance communication with them, especially when we roll out new measures. We strive for improvement always. And as the member said, many women don't consider themselves women. They consider themselves as young people. So it is important to foster a culture to promote women development. That's why the inaugural Family and Women Development Summit will be held next year. As we foster this culture, stakeholders and organizations engaged in family and women affairs can take part in the summit. For women from all walks of life of different age groups, they will be the target of the work so that they will be made aware of their development prospects. It's not about age brackets. Whatever the age, a level playing field should be provided to women to unleash their potential, especially for homemakers. They should not be limited by the stereotypes. We welcome views and suggestions from members so as to help us achieve success in the Family and Women Development Summit. Ms. Chan Ha-yen. Well, I share the same concern of Ms. Nixie Lam. I believe I'm a young woman, a very industrious one. I have a question on women affairs. Now, all along, there have been calls for the government to attach greater importance to women development. Last year, the Women Empowerment Fund was set up, and this year we hear good news from the administration. Again, the post of the Commissioner for Women Affairs will be set up at the district level in Sham Shui Po, Yau Chim Mong, the areas where I serve. Many women don't know whom to turn to for help. They may run into mental issues, accidents, tragedies, and not until then would they finally ask for help. Now, women's development falls under the HYAB, but the women's health relates to the Health Bureau. Women in our labor force falls under the Labor and Welfare Bureau's portfolio. The Commissioner for Women Affairs will be set up in April next year, but we need a consolidated effort to look after our women better, including their health, their job prospects, and their development. So I suppose the HYAB is the bureau overseeing these things, or will there be collaboration? Next, about this summit you mentioned, some women are trapped in the daily grind of going for grocery shopping and living in subdivided units. They may not even know how to use the internet. For the hidden women in a community, they are at risk. They are our concern. They may seem fine when we engage in a chit-chat. But very often they get emotional when they're unable to help out with their child's homework, or if they're unable to pay for the internet fees. It seems that they are the vulnerable groups. They may not access the Facebook, Instagram pages. They may not attend the summit. So what can we do to help them? Secretary. Yes, thank you for the several questions. Indeed, women's affairs involved multiple bureaus. This also applies to youth development and other policy areas. Now, in this policy address, the Chief Executive announced that a dedicated team will be set up on women's affairs, and the post of a commissioner will be established as well. This shows the government's determination to support women's development. And through the establishment of the team and the post, we can facilitate cross-bureau support and collaboration. A one-stop information portal will also be set up to help women look up health information and other information on legal matters, as well as job ads. Well, you said that most women wouldn't attend the summit. And that's true. But our work doesn't end at just holding a summit. We want to foster a culture in society to show more care for our women. At this summit, different practitioners engaged in women's affairs can put forward suggestions and policies to help our women return to the labor force, for them to unleash their development potential, as well as encouraging older women to pay attention to their health conditions. Through a multi-pronged approach, we foster a culture in the community that is pro-women and pro-family. The dedicated team will better coordinate within the government the various initiatives and measures relating to women's development. I'm the next, and I'd like to ask about sports. For major sports events, together with Mr. Perry Yu and another member, I took part in the harbor swim. The 3 landmark events took place: the harbor swim, a golf event, as well as the rally. All 3 events took place last week. I find that to be all right because these events were welcomed by the public. Many expatriates came to see the golf game as well as the FIA rally. That's good publicity. Using Central as the backdrop, we've seen some stunning photos of race cars on the track. So I hope that we'll be able to hold more major events. Now, for elite athletes, we won 53 medals for Para-Asian Games, altogether over 100 medals. There should be more support for sports medicine. For the Hong Kong Sports Institute, apart from taking forward the development of sports medicine, they should promote professionalism in sports and encourage more professionals to join sports as an industry. My question is this. I understand that an arena with fencing training and competition facilities will be provided, and a swimming pool suitable for hosting major international competitions will be built. Are there any thoughts on expediting their construction? Of course, it should be done as quickly as possible. Can the existing venues accommodate the fencing training and competition facilities? The other question is, in this year's policy address, there are initiatives relating to elite sports. It's a question of resources. Is it possible to provide me resources to help athletes join the elite rank so that with this boost we can develop more elite sports items? Because the 5-year development plan will come to an end this year. Will an evaluation be conducted so that we can hold more team sports events in Hong Kong?
Thank you, Chairman. I thank you for giving your support to the major sports events held over the past weekend. I'll ask the director to talk about the fencing training facilities as well as the swimming pool facilities. When we allocate resources, we follow a certain system. We do not restrict ourselves to the Olympic Games or other international games. We take into account the scores of the athletes to see how we should allocate resources. We will identify the sports activities for which if we allocate more resources, we may be able to achieve results and successes. And our commissioner is looking into that. As for the 5-year mechanism, again, we're looking into it and we will announce the details in due course after we finish our study. We are currently identifying locations to build facilities, including a swimming pool capable of hosting international competitions and a sports center with fencing training and competition facilities. Before we're able to identify any suitable locations, we are trying to renovate existing sports centers. We're now trying to identify which sports center is eligible for that. I still have some time left, so I'd like to ask Ms. Alice Mack some questions. I've been offering help to ethnic minorities, and I'm glad to see that the government is going to set up new centers for ethnic minorities. I understand that there have been emotional issues that ethnic minorities are facing, and they are wondering if more resources and support can be given to them. That's their request. Also, I have a question about property management. Understand that there will be the amendment bill for the building management ordinance. I hope the government can take into account housing issue and fire safety issues as well. I understand the government has set up the task force on tackling issues concerning subdivided units. And I understand that the HYAB has collected information about these issues, and I hope you can share the information with the Urban Renewal Authority as well as other government departments to ensure smooth implementation of your policies, Secretary. In the policy address, we have proposed a number of facilities to enhance support for ethnic minorities. So we will add 2 new service centers on top of the 8 existing centers we have for ethnic minorities. We're also going to offer help to arrivals and youth of ethnic minorities. So there are special schemes dedicated to that. There will also be district-based programs for racial harmony so that there can be more interaction between local people as well as ethnic minorities. As mentioned, there will be altogether 10 support services centers for ethnic minorities, and we will set up EM care teams in each service center. We already have 452 district care teams, and we will, on top of that, set up 10 EM care teams so that ethnic minorities can know how to get community support or information in relation to community services. According to the information we collected, the utilization rate of community services by ethnic minorities is quite low, not because they don't need the services, but because they do not have the information. We hope that people with such information can share the information with ethnic minorities. Well, Mr. Chang mentioned about emotional support for ethnic minorities. We have such services available, but a lot of times ethnic minorities don't know how to seek help. We hope that through the 10 EM care teams as well as the 10 support services centers, we can reach out to more ethnic minorities in need of help. When the recent typhoons hit Hong Kong, we managed to reach out to ethnic minorities that received the support. We want them to get information about how to deal with typhoon, and we hope that through the support services centers as well as EM care teams, ethnic minorities can have a better grasp of the information on the services available so that they can receive more support. This April, we briefed the panel on the amendment bill to the Building Management Ordinance. In relation to the amendment, we're going to define the large-scale maintenance projects, and we're going to impose a requirement on the number of people that have to take part in the voting for resolution of large-scale maintenance projects in owners' meetings. And we want to encourage owners to take part in affairs in relation to their buildings. We also will adjust the threshold for auditing financial statements to make sure that the relevant financial statements will be published in appropriate timing. For 3 new buildings, we currently have rolled out some schemes to help 3 new buildings to set up owners' corporations, and we plan to give support to these buildings after they have set up owners' corporations. And we plan to expand the relevant service scheme. Because the scheme has been set up for a year already, and still a lot of 3 new buildings need support. So we are planning to extend the scheme for 2 to 3 years so that we can ensure the 3 new buildings can have the owners' corporations set up, and they will continue to get support. On the issues about subdivided units, we will share the information we have collected with the task force on handling issues of SDUs. Understand that you are getting hold of much of the information about SDUs, and perhaps you can share information about guest houses with the task force as well. We are in the task force on tackling issues of SDUs, and we will assist the Deputy Financial Secretary as necessary. There being no further matters, I would like to thank the 2 secretaries for attending the meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.